This is the basic search items. Our project name is search items, search recipe application. So starting the process, as it could take a while to run. Here we'll be starting with index.html. We just added bootstrap CSS file here, script here, bootstrap 4. Later in app component.html we added the background image, and we added a title with header as diet planner and a logo for it, and we added a router element, routing service. So we created one router service, that is app.routing.ts. In that we specified 3 components: home component, login component, and register component. We added path URLs for all the 3 components, and the basic when the page is loaded, login component will be loaded. When we start the application, login component will be loaded. So before this we created all these 3 components using ngGC and the component name. So we wrote a basic HTML page for register using a form with username, first name, last name, email ID, password, and the confirm password. And we added the same thing for login.html. We added a basic HTML page with the username, password, and a login button. For home page, we just created the search button and the input field to type the recipe. Later I added the validation pages. I have written a separate validation service so that the same validation service will be used by multiple components as a whole. In this validation, this message will be called get validation error message, and the validator name, which is either required email or minimum length based on the error message. The controls error will be passed over here. Sorry, this got Control Z. Okay, fine. And this function will be called by control messages component. In this component, we'll just be calling based on the control error. Control error. Each control might have, like each input field might have multiple errors, like required could be failed, as well as the minimum length validation could be failed. So both should be displayed. The second one will be displayed in this case. First one will be ignored and the second error will be displayed. It will be displayed as a tooltip. We are using invalid feedback, that bootstrap class, so that it will display just right down the input field. So this is the control messages component. This will be called in every validation input field, like in login page for username and password, in register for all the input fields, in home page for the search field. In all the fields, the control messages component will be called, and control messages component will take care of displaying the invalid feedback message. Next, we added a local storage service so that this could be used for storing the registered details. Register details. So we added 2 functions. One, store register details in local storage, and check user validations. This function will be called by the register component, and check user credentials will be called by the login component. In store register details local storage, we are passing the full form group of the register values. So we'll be setting each value: first name, last name, email ID, username, and password. And while checking the user credentials, we'll be checking username are matching with the password. So these functions will be called by register component TypeScript. On submission of the register form, save user function will be called. In this, if the user form is dirty and the form is valid without any errors, then it will be stored into the local storage and it will be navigated to the login page. In the login page, when the login form is submitted, check valid user function will be called. In check valid user, if the form is valid and it is changed, dirty means it's changed, the form values are changed, then we'll be validating the credentials and navigating it back to the home directory, into the home directory where user can search for the recipes. And if the credentials are not matched, then an error message is displayed at the top of the login page. So going to the home component, in home component, based on the search results, whenever a user types the recipe and he submits, get recipe details function will be called, and we'll be doing a HTTP GET request to the Nutritonix API to get the recipe details. This is the function which gets the details into the recipe details. This recipe details is binded into the the child component display recipe details component using a property binding. So property binding will be mentioned in the HTML page at the bottom. So display recipe details is called with binding the recipe details variable. So in display recipe details, we created a card bootstrap using card bootstrap. In here, we'll be displaying the header with the item name, and contains multiple boxes. ng for of multiple, like if the recipe contains multiple items, all the items will be displayed in each row. In each row, we'll be displaying the item name and the calories and serving weight in grams for that item. This will be only 10 items, at the max 10 items only will be displayed. This is specified by ngF I less than 10. So that's it, and we added all the CSS files. This is using the first API. For text-to-speech API, we just searched online. We got one free resource that is added in index.html with the script source, the responsivevoice.org. We have added this JavaScript file over here and just call the file in display in home component.ts file. So this was commented out. We are getting one few error in this case, but finally it's compiling properly. So responsive voice.speak of the value gives the text to speech voice. This is the API. This is the JavaScript we used for text to speech API. So running the file now, it's compiled successfully. So this is our page, and this is the background image, and this is the title header. Here will be the content displayed. Here will be either login page or register page. Initially it's sign in page. I don't have an account. Register page. If nothing is specified, if the email is not valid, it shows the invalid email address. Password should be at least 6 characters. Register button will be enabled only when all the fields are valid. So the details are stored in the local storage. So here as well, it should be either 6 characters, and it's required field. We have added all the validations. Entering a wrong password so that it shows invalid login credentials. So voice is already displayed, voice is already recorded, and we have written whole chicken as the basic value. So we have added validations for this as well. It should be required, and so this is the header. Header is same. This is the search button. In this biryani, we have typed the biryani and it spelled it. This is the recipe details. Here we'll be showing multiple items. Here we have for biryani we have only one item. For biryani recipe we have only one item. And for that item we'll be displaying the calories and serving item. And that's it. Thank you.